Alrighty, so taking a look at part 2 of our little buildcraft series here. If you haven't seen part 1, I definitely recommend taking a look at that before this video. But in the first part, we visited the updated version of this build, which I've kind of turned into a little paladin. And while the paladin portion of the build definitely turned out to be to function quite well in combat, we definitely have a little bit too much healing and not enough damage for sure. So the first change we end up making is dropping about 50 points of focus and putting that into dex. So as of this point, we're running 50 strength, 250 dex, 50 focus, and 150 con. Now, the thing I want to mention again is this is still about a month and a half ago, about towards the end of June. And I bring that up because the reason why I'm making this buildcraft series now and not anytime before is because the changes that we got to a lot of things, perks, gear, and abilities in the summer patch is what made buildcraft a lot more viable and added a lot more potential to it. So with that in mind, we're going to revisit that a little bit later. With the changes that I've made, we're looking at about 300 total points towards our spear, going towards this damage and a couple of more passives. So I wanted to see how that would function out with a little bit of a brawl here on Sun. And you see me switch to my Void Gauntlet bar there because I thought I had my Scream up, which is actually a pretty interesting little interaction about this build. You have to kind of make sure you're aware of your cooldowns, or you can kind of mess with combos like that. But we kind of let somebody scurry away, and we kind of just jump back into another fight with another rapier player here. But you're gonna notice I'm just not really happy with the amount of damage that not only our light attacks but even our abilities are really doing here. We try to go for a sweep into our out of our root there, but he does a good job of parrying it. He is taking a little bit of extra damage from a couple of other players, so he does get a little bit low and does a little bit of retreat. But being that we have that light armor roll, we are able to keep up with his mobility. The fact that he is committed on fighting us, not just running away, and we are able to keep ourselves pretty topped up. As he regens, we are pretty much able to just kind of top ourselves back up. And here you see landing the full combo. We do get him pretty low, but again, it's just I want the build to be in a place to where you can finish people off, because this comes a lot again to how you want to play the build. But for myself personally, I want to be able to play all my builds solo, and if you aren't able to finish off single targets quickly enough solo, then you won't be able to fight outnumbered. So eventually we do finish him off there. But I know that something else, some other change is going to be needed for this build here. And fast forwarding a little bit here, we are at patch day now. Now, with the patch came a ton of changes, a lot of potential changes for our build, but a lot of overall damage for pretty much every other setup and every other weapon. Spear got some interesting changes, not so much damage ones, but we're going to go over and talk about those because we were still able to get some really cool changes. You're going to notice my health pool is at about 13k, and I actually dropped, I believe, 50 strength for some con because everybody was doing a ton of damage. So taking a look at a fight here, we end up getting ourselves into a little 1v1 with a looks like rapier and fire staff player. So being that I'm very familiar with this build, that I know what things to be aware of, doing a good job of spacing out most of his fire abilities and committing to that fight for whenever he commits to that flamethrower. The cool thing we have to kind of counter it is the scream, because it cancels out his flamethrower, and we do end up getting the sweep there, but not able to do much damage. Again, into the vault kick into the sweep combo there. Not really going into the full combo with the Void Gauntlet, but again, just not really able to put a real dent into him with these stuns and damage. Seeing that we're able to get them back to back here, which is something that we're going to have to address. Literally, I think we hit him with 3 vault kicks there, and while on one hand, the build quote unquote works because, you know, we are able to win fights and stay alive because of, you know, how our build is set up. We're gonna see how much more damage we can kind of pump out of this build here. So with the patch, we made two pretty big major changes that pretty much unlocked the damage, I guess, for the build, or allowed me to feel comfortable with the amount of damage that we deal on this build. I'm sure if you PvP, especially solo, feeling confident with your damage is something that is huge for really any PvP game. Originally, when I designed this build, I had designed it in mind around a certain combo. Now, it was still based around exploited weakness, but to get this and to proc it off, it was based around a sequence of abilities. You know, trying to land a bleed into a volt kick, or a root in our scream, into the sweep. Now, since I originally made this build, there's been a major change to combat, which is people are able to roll dodge now in roots, which definitely threw a wrench into how that combo kind of plays out. But on top of that, there's a couple of things that I didn't consider. Now, Void Gauntlet does apply quite a few debuffs to the enemy. Petrifying Scream does apply a root, and Oblivion does apply weakness when we attack somebody in them. Now, previously, the sweep hit would have hit them while they're in our Oblivion most of the time, which would have applied the weakness. And the thing that I didn't realize or didn't think about is root is removed when you sweep them. So they lose the debuff here, and when they're swept or knocked down, that is not considered a debuff. It's not an active debuff on their bar, which is not adding to our exploited weakness. So we were actually missing out on quite a bit of damage. A lot of the time, as you saw in those previous clips, when we would go for the full combo, we would only have 1 or 2 debuffs on the target, which is not optimal for the build. Now, as I also mentioned, the changes for the perks for Spear and Void Gauntlet weren't necessarily damage focused, but they did add a couple of interesting perks that we were able to utilize and take advantage of. The one we went for our Spear is actually Enfeebling Skewer. This is actually pretty crazy. It adds a 44% reduction in the target's damage that you skewer. So this allowed us to reduce some of the damage, or sorry, the points that we had into our constitution. In addition, with the patch or the changes that we got, because we were able to drop the constitution, we were able to put it into intelligence. The thing that this patch also got was buffs to the 50-point passive. So we already had 50 strength, so we got an extra 5% damage to our light and heavy attacks, which we were doing quite a bit. And 50 points in intelligence got 10% to critical hit damage. So we got a pretty big boost in just putting points into here. Anything extra we just dumped into focus just to buff our heals just a little bit. But this change, in addition to getting Enfeebling Skewer, Weaken is also another debuff that's being applied. So because we were able to put those points into intelligence, we also get another debuff on the target, which buffs our damage a little bit more because we have another active debuff. And then on top of that, we've also gone for Scream on our Void Gauntlet, which we didn't have before. Previously, I was just running Blessed, but also now of having Scream, when we root them in the middle of that combo, we are now applying a disease 100% of the time. So if the target is roll dodging in that roll, we at least can for sure guarantee that we get a disease proc on them. So yeah, this in turn made it to where we can more reliably apply 2 to 3 debuffs all the time. Like if you just jump in and skewer somebody, you are applying 2 debuffs, a bleed and a weaken. So we have a 20% buff to our damage just by skewering somebody. And as you're gonna see in a couple of clips here, it was the thing that allowed us to, as I said, made me feel confident in the amount of damage that we had for the build. And not only our damage, but if you want to get really nerdy about it, I originally intended for this build to just be a spear battle mage. But each step of the way, as we run into problems and try to find ways to add new things to the build to change those problems, the build has gone from being a spear battle mage to literally like a dark paladin, and it's so much more fun now. Taking a look at the first fight, after a couple of those changes here, you see we are fighting a mage and applying 3 debuffs, landing that sweep that you see we hit him for over 4k damage, and that's the damage that I'm looking for on this build. We're able to reliably land more debuffs than we were previously. Those debuffs are actually doing things for us. It's not just things like bleed. The weaken is from weakening the target by 44%, as I mentioned, as we end up taking out that second player there as well. And the disease from our Void Gauntlet is reducing their healing by, again, 40% because of the patch changes. So, yeah, the build is feeling really, really, really good now. And it's about this point where I'd probably end up locking in on a build and start hard practicing or hard focusing on my mechanics now, because we have a bunch of things to help keep us alive, but you still have to play properly, meaning dodging certain things and not getting stunned by big abilities. And you have to land certain abilities like skewer. Landing a weaken on an opponent is huge to keep you alive in fights. But taking a look at another fight here, we are trying to backcap here with a friendly. Immediately get a hatchet player down to pretty much dead to rights as he jumps onto us here. Do a really, really good job of avoiding his sweep and land a volt kick of our own into a finish there. And we are now on a heavy armor tank, it seems like. But again, reliably able to apply those debuffs and still feel like our damage is respectable even on a heavier armor target. The spear hatcher player jumps right back out. I'm gonna try to go ahead and see if I can stick onto the gate here, but keeping an eye out. We do a good job of rolling out his scream there. The cool thing about this build is, like, I feel comfortable being around half health or even a little bit less than that because of how many heals we can get during combat. We get another 2 players, but you see we get them both chunked as we jump into our oblivion there. Heal back up with a potion. Our teammate gets a finish off because he's a rapier and he's able to get a little bit quicker attacks than we are. Proc off the hatchet ultimate, get the weaken and the bleed going there. And again, just trying to be wary of his abilities. Just barely space out his volt kick. Cycling our abilities. One of the things I used to do a lot was save our Orb of Decay to heal us on the way back. But we can, because I'm comfortable with the amount of heals we have, a lot of the times I'll just end up going for straight up applying the rend portion of it, the 2 times rend, which again just even gives us even more damage. But switching back to these targets, I know that his hatchet ultimate is down. I should have went for a sweep as I roll dodge back there, but we do end up landing the volt kick. And again, roll back nicely there, spacing with him. We land the sweep and we're able to take him out. But I'm now at a point where I really... damage is now not the thing we have to worry about. It's just mechanics and practicing exactly how we want to play. And as we've been here for quite a while now, we end up getting quite a bit of reinforcements. We even end up getting somebody there on the tail end with the bleed as they end up chasing us. But a really, really nice fight there with the back cap. The other thing you want to remember when playing this build as well is you have a higher chance of surviving when you're actively fighting, because from both Oblivion and passes from our spear, we get stamina back from doing a bunch of things, but mainly while we're actively fighting an opponent. We have a Void Gauntlet user kind of charging us here. One of the things we get from our spear is after landing a hit, we get to reduce cost to our dodge backwards. So just kind of hitting him and spacing him out and dodging backwards, we're able to land the finish there. But we get pretty low. We get landed, or we get rooted there by the Ice Golem, excuse me. And again, like I said, I do feel comfortable as long as we're able to just dodge and stay alive. This Flame Mage is low from our teammate, and we are able to land a Volt Kick and finish him off. You see there with no debuffs, our sweep is doing non-crit what our crit was doing before. So the damage is definitely feeling a lot better. But we jump onto the final mage. He lands a spike. I need to just not play too aggressive here and get caught. We almost lands the flamethrower and kills us there. But the thing about this build is we usually have one of our potions up. We end up having our health potion there, so we chug it and we're able to stay alive. But yeah, it's going to be part 2. As I mentioned, from here on, I'm going to be locking in and trying to practice mechanics. So the next part is going to be going deeper into how to actually play the build and more specifics and stuff like that. But that'll probably be all for this video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.